Welcome back. What you're watching now is part 2 of my really easy apple pie recipe. In part 1, we made our no-fail all butter pie dough, and now we're going to create the pie using what we have here. For today's recipe, I'm going to be using 5 apples, 1 tablespoon of all-purpose flour, and a sugar-cinnamon mixture. So in this container, I have granulated white sugar, and I have just added cinnamon to it. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to roll out our pie dough and create the shell for our pie. If you've come across my video here and you want to see this recipe where I make the pie dough, there'll be a link up on the top right which you can click, which will send you to that recipe, or I will also put a link in the description box below this video and I will mark it as part 1. In today's recipe, I'm going to be using a tart pan with a removable bottom. This makes removing our pie later on super simple. So in part 1 of our video, we made the dough. I'm going to grab one of the discs and that will make the bottom for our pie. So at this point, my dough has been resting in the fridge for over an hour, but I like to bring it out about 20 minutes before I start working with it so that it does warm up a little bit. I'm going to get down a little bit of flour. This is just all-purpose flour. We'll get our nice dough down. A little bit of flour on the top. And then we're going to start rolling this out. And whenever you're rolling any kind of dough, you want to always give it a little bit of a spin. Some people like to give it a quarter turn, you can give it a half turn. Just try to keep the integrity of that circle circular. Just makes it easier when you're going to place it into your tin. Once we place this into our tin, then what we're going to do is work on the apples, and that's going to give this portion of the dough a little time to relax in our tin. You can see all of the nice little specks of butter in our dough. Try not to use too much flour. Get that on there. If you find it sticking, put a little bit of flour on, and then you can use a little pastry brush, or you can just do this. You don't want to incorporate too much flour into the actual dough. Okay, that looks pretty good. We'll bring our pan in here, make sure we're on camera. Go about halfway. And then very gently get that over. Like that. And then what I like to do, so I bring the dough over and I kind of push it down into the crack, or the crease down below. So just fit that dough all the way. So you give it a little push and you can bring it up. Push. Just push all the way down. One thing when you're doing a pie dough, you do not want to stretch the dough. It's not a good thing. So just push down like that. And then what I like to do is I like to grab the dough and push over. So you see the lip or the rim is here. I like to bring it in. Just bring it in a little bit. Boom. Push and just kind of lock it in there. And it gives you a little bit more to play with, just to make that edge a little bit thicker. So very quickly, this is how I'll do it. I just go in. You see, so I'm giving a little bit more on the inside. So I push in and then cut it with my thumb. So just bring it in and push it. Just like that, and you're cutting the dough as you do this, so it's all in one step. Hopefully I'm on camera here. So push, push in, and then push down. Now if you want a very thin side, then you wouldn't do this. But this just gives a little bit more stability to our pie or tart, because this is actually a tart pan. But it's all the same thing. It's all going to taste the same in your tummy. So that's good. And then just go around. And then you can use just the rest of this if you want later on. You could roll this out, bunch it all up, you can roll it out, you can make some very small pies with this, or a few decorations for the top. And then I like to just keep it at the top and just give it a little bit of a push. So I'm putting my thumb down and pushing at the same time so that it doesn't go up again over the lip. So just give it a push. So I'm going like that. I'm going in and down, just to keep it so that it doesn't come back up, because if I push it again, it lifts over. So by placing your thumb there at the same time, it keeps everything in, and you're slightly building the edge of that, the tart a little bit thicker. You can see that it's nice like that, but it's not overly thick. But it gives stability to the crust later on when you cut it. And then you can just go around, make sure it's all nice and even. Just take your time. That's good. That's good, just like that. And I realize I am quite far away. Let me just zoom in a little bit. So I've just zoomed in a little bit. I'm just doing this over again, just in case you didn't see. I mean, this is just a slightly different technique, but basically the same thing. So I'm pushing in and I'm pushing down at the same time so that it doesn't lift up. So just go all the way around, take your time. And if you find that there are some areas, like right here, look, it's very, very thin. You could take a little piece of dough and just shove it in there and just give it a little bit of a push. In the final product, you'll never know that you had done that. So if you see it's a little bit thin, you can do that. But that looks good. So now on to the next step. Bring in my cutting board. So at this point, I've got 5 apples. Some of them are a little larger. Sometimes I use 4 if they're about this size, but since I've got a few that are smaller, I'm going with 5. So what I'm going to do, I'm not going to bore you doing all of this. I'm going to core all of these, I'm going to peel them, and then I'm going to chop them up, and then I'll come back. So I have all of my apples cored at this point. I've got a bowl here, and I'm just going to cut these up into small slices, just like that, little cubes. Just get rid of some of the apple I forgot, the peel. So right into your bowl. Any size that you want to cut, or any shape, feel free to do whatever shape that you want. You don't want to make these too thin, because then it kind of turns into applesauce. So bigger chunks are better. And our last piece. Perfect. In my shaker, I have granulated sugar and cinnamon. And I'm just going to start sprinkling that on. And I'm not going to give you exact measurements because everybody's point of sweetness is different. I may make a recipe and then somebody will say it's a little bit too sweet or it's not sweet enough. So put as much sugar and cinnamon as you wish, which you think you're going to like in your apple pie. And then I just want to just going to start shaking all of this around. Remember that little bit of all-purpose flour? We'll just get that on there. And what that's going to do, it's going to help thicken this when it's in the oven. It's optional, but I like to add a little bit because any of the juices that are produced from the apple kind of get a little bit more thick. A little bit more. And another little shake. And we're ready to go. And then I'm just going to get all of this in here. And then you just want to spread all this around. So you just want to get that nice and even. Now we're going to roll out our top. And we'll start off, same process with our top piece. A little bit of flour down. And now we're going to roll this out. So we want to roll this until it nicely fits over the top of our pie. So make sure to always lift your dough. Just get a little bit of flour underneath. And just keep rolling. So in video part 1, we made the 2 discs. So this is enough to do this whole pie. So the bottom crust and the top crust. So that looks about right. Bring our pie over, just like that. I'm going to grab my dough and just get that right over, and never pull on the dough. You do not want to pull it. And now I'm just going to gently get it right on there. Just give it a lot of space. You can just lift it up so that it's not grabbing anywhere, and that's good. And then what I do is the same kind of thing. I just lift it a little bit and push. So I'm pushing inward and then down. So I want to make sure that if my dough shrinks a little bit, there's a little bit extra there. So push it in and then down. So push inward and down. So you're giving a little bit more dough. So push in. You can see that little crease. That's perfect. So all the way around. This is so simple, and it makes a really, really good pie. Just like that. Push. And that's good. And just make sure it's all broken off properly. And then just remove this. And here we have the leftovers and the little bit from the bottom. So you can take that, roll it out, and let that chill again, and you can use that tomorrow or the next day and make a mini apple pie. And then I've got some scissors, and I'm just going to snip into the upper dough or the crust, and this is to allow steam to escape so we don't have an exploding apple pie. And that's good. Now at this point you could just pop your pie right into the oven like you see here, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to break an egg, I'm going to mix it up, and we're going to add a little bit of egg wash to the top and a little bit of sugar. Get my egg in there and grab a fork, and I want to mix this up really well. You can add a little bit of water when you're doing an egg wash. Sometimes you can use an egg yolk only. Depends on the person. You can use just the egg yolk, or you can use the egg yolk and a little bit of water, or a whole egg, just like this. The egg yolk on its own is a little bit more powerful, so you're going to get something that's a little bit darker. But this is good. So once it's completely mixed, that's good. Now we're going to apply it. So with a silicone brush, I'm just going to go all the way around. A liberal coating is good. Make sure you get all of those little cracks and crevices. Just get all over the place. Okay, that's nice. And then as a last step, I'm going to add a little bit of sugar. You can add granulated sugar, but today I'm going to be using raw sugar, and this is also called turbinado sugar. It's a very coarse sugar, but it really is nice. I'm going to get that all over the top. You can see how granular this is. I'm just going to sprinkle it all over. And I do have my oven set to 425 degrees Fahrenheit. I'm going to put my pie in for 15 minutes, and then I'm going to turn it down to 350 degrees Fahrenheit, and I'm going to let it go a total of 40 minutes. That looks good, just like that. So now I'm going to pop this into the oven, and I'll come back and I'll show you the final product later on. Ooh, it smells so good. So here we have it right out of the oven. This is extremely hot right now, so I'm going to let this sit for about 20 minutes and then I'm going to unmold it. This is about 20 minutes later, and I want to get this out of my mold, so I'm just going to lift this up. It's quite warm still, so I'm going to give it a little bit of a push. Just gently. I want to make sure it doesn't crack or anything. I want to have a clean break. Okay, that's good. And then I'm just going to push my hand through and slide that right off. And there we have it. And you can see how nice it is to have a tart pan with a removable bottom, so that you can just remove your pie so easily. So at this point, I'm going to let this completely cool, and then I'm going to come back. This is about a half an hour later. My pie is just slightly warm, but I'm ready to cut into it at this point. And I'm going to use a pizza cutter to do that. I'll just get in there. Makes an easy job of this. Get a nice little slice. I do want to show you what it looks like inside. Bring that over. Get my fork under here. Look at that. Ooh, nice. Let me turn this around. So I do want to zoom in just on this area here. So I've zoomed in just a little bit. I wanted to show you a little closer up of what it looks like inside. You can see a really nice pie dough and that really nice filling. And of course I'm going to have to try a little piece here. This smells so good, by the way. That's really good. And that aroma of the apple and cinnamon, oh, amazing. So if you've never tried an apple pie or an apple tart, I hope this really fast and fun video has encouraged you to do so. That's it for today's really fast video. It was a really fun one. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please give me a thumbs up, subscribe if you wish. I really do appreciate that. And as always, if you want to see written ingredients, you can head over to my Facebook page, facebook.com/BakeLikeAPro. So that's it for today's video, and I'll see you next time.